Hello, and welcome to the Cube studio here in Palo Alto. I'm John Furrier, host of the Cube. We got a special Cube conversation with InfluxData and AWS. Evan Kaplan's the CEO of InfluxData. Brad Bebee, director, Amazon Neptune, Amazon Time Stream with AWS. Gentlemen, great to see you. We're following up from reInvent, where we had a great conversation around, I love time series databases, Evan, and Amazon, of course, we're a customer, been following the magic since I think our 13th year. At reInvent, maybe 14th, I can't remember, I'm losing track, but great to see you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So you got some context here. You guys working together, strategic relationship. We touched on that at reInvent on the two companies. Some new updates. Talk about what's going on. I want to get into the open source piece. What's the update on the expanded relationship?
So, so the basic notion is we developed this agreement about a little over a year ago. Where Amazon is licensing our core open source and offering it to their customers. So a lot of new open source users start on Amazon now, as opposed to just downloading from GitHub or our site, which is great news. And as we contemplated in the relationship, we were going to build value-added services into that the customers would be able to directly configure and not go through the marketplace. And the first one we've offered is on our 2.0 series of InfluxDB, and that's a read replica, basically a scale-out capability, so you can horizontally scale the database, make it highly available, and do some load balancing.
And time stream we talked about with Replicas new. I want to get into the AWS side, but real quick, what's the vision on open source? Clearly, you guys have been doubling down on open source. We see it everywhere. What's the update with Influx and AWS?
Yeah, well, clearly customers love open source software and particularly open source databases. And so, we offer a number of different managed open source databases. With Influx, I think one of the things that's really unique about the relationship is that in addition to the open source version, the Influx 2.x that we offer as part of our managed service, now with the launch of read replicas, customers who love the open source can also get some additional functionality for read replicas, which allow you to expand your read throughput, increase your availability features. So they can still run the open source that they like and love, but they also have the ability to get additional features that weren't previously available. And we're doing this also, as they can do that right through the AWS console or the CLI or the SDK. So the engagement model is, we think it's a model that's a lot lower friction for people to adopt.
So open source, developers, we see in that traction, app dev still rocking, certainly at the hyperscale systems that are out now, the performance is getting better. You got AI right around the corner. More hardware is being deployed. We're seeing the CapEx growth. You guys just hit the numbers. But the developers still want to code. What are some of the challenges that you guys are solving with read replicas? What's the big opportunity? Take us through that. Obviously, in the enterprise, we're seeing more development action with AI as well. What's the challenge? What's the opportunity?
I think it's actually pretty straightforward. So InfluxDB is known for super easy to get going. It's a schemaless platform. It allows people to very quickly insert their data. It allows developers to be productive. Like other previous projects, I'm thinking of MongoDB and some others where ease of use allowed the developers. And so ease of use is wonderful. It's a really important, we call it time to awesome. But very quickly, when you get to a point when you start getting meaningful amounts of data and you have to scale your system to production, ease of use is not enough, right? One is you need to be able to replicate, to scale, to allow it to fail over, to be able to run this in a production workload. So the combination of adding, the basic instances on Amazon, then allowing you to replicate multiple versions gives you both that high availability, the ability to do, to really manage the throughput much better.
Okay, simplification, user check, productivity, got that. Performance, you talk about in production. What are some of the impact numbers? Can you share any data around workloads versus the alternative, which is traditional methods? What's the upside?
So, the upside is that, with read replicas, so prior to this launch, if customers wanted to have what we call multiple availability zone high availability, which is what we recommend for kind of the maximum availability for applications, they had to purchase what we called kind of a hot standby. And that meant they paid for 2 instances just for in case one might go down and would fail over. Yeah. With read replica, they can choose to configure a read replica instance, and they get the benefit of increased read throughput, so they can basically double the number of queries that they can process. But they no longer have to pay for that sort of hot standby, because that second read replica also handles that failover mode. So it's for developers and for people going into production, it's a more cost-effective way to provide more throughput and scalability for their time series applications. And of course, it uses the same APIs that developers love.
Okay, so you got the in production, in the system, and then you got the ease of use of developer productivity. What's the status of the offering right now? Available?
Yeah.
Generally
2 weeks
available?
in market, people are signing up.
So general availability?
Yep, general availability.
What's been the feedback from the early users?
Customers have been excited about it. I think people are. It's a new model, and so we've seen people go through. You can go through the console. You select. It's now the default. So when you go through, and I hope you do after this, you can spin up an instance or two. You can go through and you select read replica, and it's really, I think, one of the things that we think is success about it is that many of the developers don't even necessarily notice that they're able to do this because it's so relatively straightforward and simple. And so the users that we've had early really like the scalability and the ability to scale their read throughput.
So it's seamless and frictionless for the developer, but they got to know what they're doing. So they have to configure it, but you make it easier so it's kind of like just happening. So
prior to this launch, it's always a shared responsibility model. So we want to give people, lead people to decisions that we think will give them the best availability and security. And so prior, the default was sort of multi-AZ high availability, and now we've made this the default option for customers. And so if you're not even thinking about it, what you get is a highly available configuration. Of course, if you are more expert or you want different kinds of things for a specific use case, then you have other options. But really making it easy to use and allowing you to end up in a configuration that can allow you to scale.
So they take advantage of all the Amazon features, so they don't have to go worry about all the different zones and all the configurations that have to go on. Is that kind of the gist of that piece?
Yeah, we make it easy for them to be able to take advantage of the best practices for multi-AZ deployment and other pieces to maximize their application availability and scalability.
Give an example of a customer. Okay, go ahead.
And they stay, I mean, the thing that's nice for us and it makes it more frictionless, they stay within the Amazon interface that they're using. Mm-hmm. So what I think is really interesting about this relationship is most of the relationships that you have with hyperscalers, including some of ours, is that you go through a marketplace, they deploy your stuff, they operate through your console, and then they deploy their stuff. What's nice about this particular relationship is it's the hybrid, is they deploy our stuff, but through the interface that they're used to, through the permission structure, even through the billing structure that they're used to. And that kind of native integration with Amazon allows them, who are probably, them being Amazon, being the experts on how you manage cloud-based instances, it allows them to keep the customers within that framework, and it makes it super easy for the developers. Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense.
It's not one click, but it's it's a minimal number of clicks.
But once it's up and running, it's like auto scaling. It reminds me of auto scaling with a great feature just happens. Thank you very much, but you can just check the box. Take me through the time series use cases, because the importance of time series, I always harp on the queue because databases have their role, they have different purposes. Guys, talk about the time series, the importance of it. One, why it's important, and two, what specific use cases does it shine?
So maybe we divide this question in two. I'll talk about the use cases because obviously that's our customer base and those are the dynamics, and Brad can talk about why those customer use cases are super relevant in the Amazon context. So in terms of use cases, our business is lots of, let's call it sensor analytics. Let's call it both virtual sensors and physical sensors, network telemetry, space, rocketry, energy, process controls, industrial IoT, things that have sensors attached, things that require high ingest, super performant query, data that's basically in motion, foundational data for instrumenting systems. And so most of that business for us is, you'd call it broadly IoT.
IoT has, I don't need the data, why even use it? Because it's time sensitive.
Right, it's much more about data in motion than you would say a traditional database. It's much more about what happened, what can I predict is going to happen, what can I control is going to happen. So real-time monitoring and real-time control, those kinds of systems are really driven by that.
Yeah, and there's consequences if you don't get that right, because
if you don't get it right, all your AI models fail, but your basic operations are tragic.
Okay, go ahead. That was a good lead in.
Yeah, I mean, so for our customers, really, it's the scale, the sort of that monitoring piece. We see application monitoring, different pieces in security, fleet management pieces. Anywhere where you really want to understand how's your application performing over time, how are all of these various devices performing over time, and with AWS and the scale of customers, the global deployment footprint is often very attractive for that.
I mean, you mentioned performance. High performance is super important here. I mean, you mentioned some of those IoT examples. I just was in my head popping in like edge computing things. You're seeing a lot of computer vision, a lot of stuff coming down the pike that are, I would say, AI like IoT. IoT has always been kind of like an industrial thing, but now you have connected devices and AI pulling in from the edge, right? So data coming in real time is, who trains that? Like, okay, what do I train on? Because that's new data, right? Do I send it back? So all these new dynamics happen. Thoughts on does that play into this, or is that?
It's gigantic. It's actually probably the most important thematic going forward. I heard this AI thing's going to be big, so I was just sort of, so you can talk about it, but
let me write that down.
Yeah, we should write that down.
But I mean, no, but the AI is still elementary, it's early. But I mean, we see this on some of the edge conversations we have, is that it's new data. Do you train at the edge and the device getting smart? So real time is new data.
So two threads to pull there.
Yeah.
One is, time series is about recent. It's about now. And so many of the architectures, and one of the great dynamics of this relationship is there are 1.3 million different separate IP addresses running Influx every day, right? We have, we're approaching 3,000 commercial customers. So that gap is very large, which tells you that there's a huge amount of InfluxDB at the edge deployed for exactly the purposes you're talking about, which is collect the sensor data locally, store it, downsample it to it, send it up to the cloud, work with the cloud. It doesn't necessarily all go directly to the cloud. And the reason of that is you want that recency, you want that effect. If you think of, we've talked about this before, the canonical example of a self-driving car, you don't want that information going to the cloud and back to decide whether you need a left turn and not hit that, hit that pedestrian, right? There are things that need to be on board, and then there are things, intelligence needs to be built in the cloud. With the Amazon relationship, what's great about it is certainly much of the data, the data of record sits in the cloud, and so it's available for the AI engines, whether it's Lakehouse or Bedrock actions on it, or things that are stored in Redshift. It's available within the customer's Amazon envelope. And so that's the opportunity, is take the native data, create intelligence with it, and then apply it to real-time systems.
Yeah, we're seeing more and more people use the cloud now for that because they can't, one, get the hardware at the edge.
Yeah.
And if they do, how do they run it? What do they do? So they're leveraging cloud big time on this. And you mentioned AI is going to be big. Machine learning's been around for a while, so we've seen some machine learning in production. Generative AI is a whole different ball game, but that's coming fast. Agentic is going to be a huge piece of this. How is that changing the opportunity? How do you guys see the AI piece specifically? Because real-time telemetry, agents can work on that too.
I think we see it in a couple different ways. I'm also interested in Evan's comments here, of course. One thing is it's an opportunity for exactly the same kind of time-sensitive instrumentation. Like if you think about agents and you're deploying an agent and it's responding to a question, and I've asked it the same question 3 times. I want to know that so I can maybe take a different action. And so there's just in some of those agentic workflows, we think there's a lot of just application opportunity. But the other, and part of the reason we're really excited about the kind of Influx 3.0, the next generation for Influx, is that it really helps to combine the real-time awareness and insights with getting that data into the data lake. And the kind of the architecture that InfluxData has put together there is really, I think, where we see customers wanting to go.
Yeah, Evan, double down on that. I mean, the role of InfluxDB is key with AI. How are you seeing AI being applied? Any kind of use cases?
There's 100%. There's 2 dynamics that are playing out in the real world in customer sites, and I can't give you exact customer names for a variety of reasons, but so we can assume that every customer of even an older industrial concern, people making devices that have 30-year lifetimes, they all have lake houses or big data backends in some way, shape, or form. A lot of that's in Redshift or Athena, a lot of it's in Databricks, Snowflake, and other folks. But they're all looking to push all of the structured data there and combine it with unstructured data to build that intelligence. What's important for us is a couple of things to do with AI. One is, it used to be that in these kinds of, let's call them broadly manufacturing, industrial, virtually sectors, is that there were these operational technologists, people who knew how to operate the machinery, the equipment, the controls, they're ex-manufacturing engineers. But what you're seeing is a developer emergence in that world where people are buying less off-the-shelf software. They're taking components from their Amazon, from their different Amazon capability, including us, right? And they're using AI to code at a rate that is, even 4 months ago, I would have thought was not possible. Obviously, we're doing some of that internally. We do different kind of coding, but still, that workflow coding is so not easy, but it's much more straightforward. So it's enabling these people on the factory floors to take all the data that they've always been collecting and turn them into workflows and build intelligence and systems around it. And that dynamic of how easy it is to code then opens up everything else. And then on the time series side, not to be long-winded, but for time series, right, there is the measurement. There is pressure, volume, temperature, light at a point in time, at a nanosecond resolution, a millisecond, a second resolution, right? But the really important time series is the context is, how can you tag that data point? What are the 7 other variables that you want to look at that point in time? The more I can describe those variables, the more high resolution capture I can get, the more intelligence I can build, the more autonomy I can build in the system.
So AI does that.
AI does the intelligence.
We've seen tagging.
The capture is hard.
Yeah.
The ingest is hard. I think that's what Brad understands it. Brad actually is deeper on databases than I am. He's got a longer history. That capture of intelligence, that ingest, that movement of the data quickly, that's a hard problem, right? It's not like Oracle. We capture the customer data, we put it in there, we sit on it for 5 years. That is not the dynamic that happens. This is data.
I mean, there's 2 threads there. I mean, there's the AI, seeing AI help that context, but the scale piece he was mentioning on your end is, and it's end-to-end workloads too. So that's a good thing actually here. So the end-to-end knowledge is also helpful. So there's like the context and performance.
And the context is super important, particularly when you think about generative AI, because the context that you can give generative AI will really impact the outcomes that you're getting out of it. So like there's kind of the data processing piece, how you're capturing and managing the context, how you're, the different techniques you're applying with generative AI.
Well, you guys got some good stuff going on. Any other comments around use cases that you're watching with AI? Because it's very dynamic. Are things popping out from a customer standpoint? Because we're seeing a lot more opportunity. The aperture of real time goes beyond sensors and stuff with devices. It's really connected.
It's almost hard to describe to you, John, just how fast things are going. Like it's just these things is just the ability to collect data, the ability to code, the emergence of hyperscalers that have all of the assembly pieces in a common place. So the ability to put a solution together now and solve a problem, the developers are so much more enabled. And so it's really, we've talked about this. I have a son in college. Like, what skills do I want him to know? And I want him to know how to use these tools.
Process skills.
And I want him to know, right, I want him to know, almost an industrial engineering background. Like, how do I optimize systems broadly? Because all the tools are now easier to use and more powerful.
I mean, this comes up all the time. I'm so glad, because I smile because I've been riffing for 2 years. Systems revolution's coming. It's a system, right? And it's a revolution because the new way, if you can lay out the architecture, so system architecture, workflows, and data seem to be the common theme in some of the best things I'm seeing, because it's not, I just solved this problem in a vacuum. There's a holistic view, like a process. I'm at the edge of the device. Well, what am I looking at? I'm a camera. I'm looking at maybe retail. I'm looking at a street corner, whatever it is. And some people put in security cameras that are doing facial recognition. All kinds of things are happening. You got, never mind the industrial side, it's massive, right? So you have the confluence of those 2 things coming together. But it still goes into a database somewhere.
There's always a database at the bottom of all. That's why we're in, but that assembly capability, right? I mean, you know this is your background. You're an entrepreneur. The ability to assemble a business. The cost curve for assembling a business has just walked down. I don't want to say it's nothing, but it's pretty de minimis.
Yeah, and I think that the no-code, low-code, and some of the code assistance is going to drive a lot of innovation. I think you're going to see a Cambrian explosion of kind of new things, and that's why I love the open source angle. That's why I asked at the top, and I wanted to kind of close out by coming back to that by saying that's where the developers are. They're all in open source. Now, if the libraries are coming in with the models, that's still fresh. So I got coding assistant on one hand, that's going to help me with the blocking and tackling of coding. But if I know architecture, now I got models coming in. They're coming in fresh, and so people are slinging. They used to sling APIs around back in the cloud native days. They're in the cloud. Now they're slinging models around, model integration. So there's all kinds of ways to apply to the data. So now I got to know which to apply, where and when. The right time at the right place. It's always been kind of an ad tech thing, time series. What context is this time series going to be? So if you can nail the time series. So 2 questions to end. What happens if people get it right? What's your observation on if they nail the time series data situation, workflow right? What's the upside? And then 2, how is open source feeding more capabilities and the future of open source? So I get
Which one do
time.
you want to answer?
I mean, let me start with what happens when people get it right.
Good.
I think when people get it right, particularly with using time series data, they are the ones that are able to get the insights faster. They're the ones that are able to make decisions better. And so as a business or whichever they're trying to do, they're the ones who get that little bit of advantage, to be able to execute faster. And so those that get it right, really can benefit.
So competitive advantage, better outcome.
Competitive advantage, better outcome, whatever they're particularly optimizing for, but really being able to use that data and then use it on both sides, I think, is the other side, where generative AI comes in, because not just making those real-time decisions, but taking that data over time and being able to get insights out of it that can drive changes in systems or whole new systems that you want to.
You brought up tagging earlier. I see tagging as a big thing where that's automation kicks in.
Absolutely.
Really
So
easy
important.
way to throw some automation and AI at it. Tag everything looks like this.
One easy frame for this, for highlighting what Brad had to say is, think about it as a post-dashboard world. Think about it as we're not sitting in Knox or SOX looking at dashboards, waiting for things to happen, pagers to go off, right? We're building systems that are increasingly intelligent, self-healing, autonomy. And so if you believe that's the frame, then anything you do with that time series data becomes more valuable.
Yeah, remember the old days, not old days, but when business logic was a big put business logic in the software. That's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
The business logic, and then you just walk away. I don't need a dashboard. The logic's already embedded.
That's what you want. I mean, you want my fundamental thesis about all of this from a systems-oriented point of view is all systems created by humans want to be increasingly autonomous. They don't all need to be autonomous. They are not all economically autonomous. But if it becomes easier and easier for them to become autonomous, then basically that will be the anti-entropic force moving forward.
All right, so the future of open source, we're kind of seeing another generational shift. The coding is going to be there from an automation standpoint, code assistance. I mean, the numbers on efficiency and productivity are off the charts. What happens in the open source community with time series? More goodness comes in, more contribution.
More goodness. We're just rolling out our version 3 of open source. I think because I'm here with Brad also, I think what you're going to see, what you do see more often, is you see sponsorship of open source coming from the hyperscalers. Not necessarily co-option of this open source, but sponsorship. And the reason is that 5 years ago, everybody who ran Influx they downloaded either from our GitHub repo or they downloaded from our website. And then, some of them ran on their laptop, but a lot of them ran it in the cloud anyway. And so why not, if you're a hyperscaler, just initiate the open source download directly into the cloud, which is basically what our relationship. You get an instance, you get the open source, and you're running. It's another way to get open source.
It's embedded.
Right, and you're going to run it in the cloud anyway, unless you want, unless you're going to build your home data center. Right, and so
I got to ask you while you're here, Evan, because I just love to get the perspective from you, CEO. Why do people love InfluxDB? What's the big benefit? Would you say is the high order bit in terms of?
Well, it's obviously because of the super smart CEO, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
No.
Articulate, smart.
Articulate, yeah.
Love open source. I mean,
what else do you want?
Everyone has a big reason why they win.
Yeah, there's no question about for us. It's this notion of time to awesome. Is you can get going. It's not complicated. It's about developer empowerment. Can I build the thing I want relatively quickly? and not just us. So right, think about that thematic as you think about low code, no code, or coding automatically. That developer empowerment is back to what we're saying. There's these people who can understand processes or systems can quickly go. And so in the time series category, we're clearly at the best of that. We just really are. It's been part of our. When Paul started the company, it was based on what Mongo had done early on with NoSQL databases. Like, make it really easy for developers.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a great model. It's free, and you want more, you can get some things around it.
And if we can, then it's our job to make sure, I think I quote Ali Goetze, who said, open source is wonderful. You have to hit 2 home runs. You have to make sure you have a popular project so somebody's interested, and then you have to make sure you figure out how to monetize it, which is also hard.
Yeah, I just love how it continues to be monetized around the value. For you guys, TimeStream, AWS, what's the reason why this is winning on your end? Is it the scale? Is it the integration?
I think it's a combination. It's the things that developer loves in terms of the time to awesome from the open source database with the managed service, so that when once you get started, you can confidently take it in production. You can do all the things we talked about earlier in terms of scalability and high availability, and that's really, I think, why we're so excited about it.
Well, this is a great time. It's awesome. Time to Awesome is here. Loved you guys coming on theCUBE, and had a great time at reInvent. Final closing point. What's next in the relationship? You mentioned 3.0 is coming out.
Yeah.
Give us a teaser of what's on the roadmap.
We're expecting to deliver our 3.0. It's hopefully it'll be in beta early next week, and we expect to deliver it to the market as GA sometime early in the next quarter. And then hopefully Amazon, there'll be some lag time, and then it'll be available on Amazon as a native open source and with add-ins.
And what are you guys doing to continue the awesomeness?
Well, we're here today, of course.
It's an awesome
talking to you.
But no, really the focus for us is on 3.0. As I mentioned earlier, we think that architecture of you can get the real-time insights and your data is available in the data lake, in Parquet or Iceberg, the kinds of format. We really, from customers, that's really what they want. They want the database, but they also want to be able to use the data in the data lake. And so we're super excited about that, super excited about Influx 3.0 and making it available on AWS.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all goodness in the cloud. Continues to get the auto scaling I mentioned earlier is a great feature. This is a lot like that, easy to plug in, embedded in. Love the time to awesomeness quote. I mean, we love the frequency of insights. I mean, we love high frequency insights. Get it out there fast, get the data, and get that time to value. Great stuff. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it. Evan, good to see you again.
Hey, John. Appreciate taking time.
Tech conversation here. InfluxData at AWS. Time to value. Time series is a really big deal, and then making it easy to use and scale. And with AI, it just gets better and better. Of course, theCUBE is high frequency insights here. We're doing it here in the Palo Alto. I'm John Furrier. Thanks for watching.